And you're mentioning specifically developers, and actually we've had as well in previous. I remember in the OWASP SAMM user day back in Barcelona in May, there was a bit of a discussion of whether OWASP SAMM is meant for developers or if it's not. And I think you have a very interesting take on this based on what we've discussed before. And specifically, I want to ask you, so how did it help? Because I know from our previous conversation that you mentioned it helped specifically in vulnerability management and improving your SSDLC, which are obviously very focused as well on what the developers are doing. So could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on that, and whether as well, what's your general opinion of whether OWASP SAMM is a framework that's meant for developers or if it's not?
Yeah, I'll begin with your last one first. You can use almost any type of mindset and framework. You can even, I'm just being bold here, you can even use the mindset of yoga if you wanted creatively to apply to application security. Anything goes, right? But for us, it has to be one, it has to be tangible and material to our developers. Two, it cannot be seen as a blocker, right? And three, it is something that we can actually gradually scale to. So is OWASP SAMM really the best? Well, it's the best for us. If it's the best for you, I don't know. It would depend on your practice. One of the, I would look at it from a benefits perspective is that, can we do a natural path with application security? Meaning, can we go with our developers rather than seeing, if you're in a highway and we're like 300 kilometers per hour and the developer is at 50 kilometers per hour, can we scale it back or always at that speed? So that's it. That's what we're looking at. Is it a fluid and natural path? Second is we believe that application security, specifically with our SDLC practice anyway, is iterative and behavioral rather than a system shock. Because if you look at it from a system shock, our engineers are always switching into compliance mode, right? We don't want them context switching. We want them developing, right? And the habit of security should just be natural. So some of the things that we're introducing, like vulnerability triages, that is an expectation. But by using OWASP SAMM, we're using questions and live benchmarking that make it gradual and silent. And that's what we want, is that we want it to be a natural flow. On top of that is quality and integrity. So these two things can get very subjective when you're developing. So for us, how do you measure quality? Is it true like subjective questions that OWASP SAMM is eliciting? And through that, are you going towards an objective list that you want to, right? So for terms of quality, getting more a bit technical, is that are you looking at pushing code through your branch trees? Are you looking at pushing code with another developer? And are you communicating with that developer or the other pusher, right? And in your branch trees, are you doing those reviews? Now, these may seem simple and granular, but they are meant to, because if you're in a fast-paced company or in a company that has competing deliverables, some of the items I just mentioned seem like, nah, we'll just slowly take a look away from that. We'll take a break, which is what degrades quality and integrity, right? So a lot of what we're introducing in OWASP SAMM is just basically how we're making it feel natural. And of course, I think one of the bigger ones that Nicholas is interested in here is in how does it affect your cyber insurance readiness and risk management and risk mitigation? It does. Depends on where you are. So we're a cloud SaaS. So for cyber insurance and risk management, is that if you rely, so I also have a legal background, so this maybe it works. I just have multiple hats. Is that for us, how do we diminish the risk that we have as a company and also diminish the risk for our customers? So one thing you can assess how great or how good your working compliance and security program is around cyber insurance readiness, right? Because your cyber insurance provider during renewal and when you're getting one, they look at your entire risk management stack. Meaning, do you have, for example, going by GRC, do you have, your ISO, your SOC 2? Do you have change management policies and others, disaster recovery, incident response? Do you even have normal vulnerability cadence? They do go deep into that. Second, they'd look at your contractual requirements. So that's a big one. You don't have to be a very sophisticated company, but your contractual requirements do state whether or not you have a compliance security program. Third is, it can go very deep, right? It can go into application security, which is what this podcast is about, is that, are you ready in terms of there's bug errors, in terms of issues that were caused to your applications, right? You can take that up to your cyber insurance provider, or you can take that up internally with your legal team or the team that you're working with to assess your cyber insurance. So we use OWASP as part of that. So it's not like we just had like our typical GRC frameworks. We have a couple, and OWASP is that compensatory layer. Why all of that is being presented to as part of our cyber insurance is because insurance providers, or basically a third party can look at it. A third party assessing you is going to look at you far more favorably if you've done your very best, right? Not just acting like tick boxes, right? A lot of this they will actually review.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry. Do you have more to say around the insurance topic? So from my understanding as well is that you mentioned that OWASP SAMM specifically allows you to show more explicitly or more also to what extent you've implemented certain security processes in place that ultimately is what allows you to show insurance companies that you've actually lowered the level of risk of insuring you, which also then translates to more beneficial premiums, let's say. Is that kind of also the case?
Yeah, I would look at risk management as measurable. It could be managed, and it also could be monitored and mitigated. Several ways an approach to it, but those are the basics. With OSM, yes, it does. So for us, and this may be what you call an enlightenment, because this is application security, but I'm talking more on the GRC and legal side. Essentially, we present all of these as part of our cyber insurance portfolio, and if you present it to the point, and of course, this is also at the same time you finding a cyber insurance provider or a different type of assessor that understands your technology stack. We present these because it's objective, measurable, and material. That's what OWASP is as part of our overall risk management. And is it directly contributing to reducing or risk? Yes, of course. But if you're asking us around cyber insurance, present this portfolio or something similar that you have, what we call a pre-assessment with potential cyber insurance providers or even with your legal team, and they'll actually look at whether or not you're reducing risk. Because the more you reduce risk, the more you're favorable for premiums and coverage. It also gets folded into as part of your compliance registry controls. And again, it's coming back to what I said earlier. It's in fluid, natural, and behavioral. Why that's applicable to cyber insurance is for no better other reason is that it will reduce your premium if you're showing a mature process. And mature does not mean you have to have everything perfect. It just shows you have a practice in place that will weather any storm or attempt to, right? Is it durable is basically the question.
Yeah, no, I understand. And actually maybe then a follow-up question would be that how, just to explain a little bit further, how is it that or why couldn't you achieve, let's say, similar results or the same results if you had just had as you did before ISO 27001 and SOC Type 2? Like, what really is the add-on that having OWASP SAMM and presenting that as part of your portfolio, let's say, to the assessment agency, to the insurance agency? What is the actual add-on that it gives you over if you just show and you just go on and say like, oh, we're ISO 27001 certified, we're SOC Type 2 certified? What is the actual additional add-on that OWASP SAMM gives you over just that?
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, it depends on each company's practices. But I would think of this as an onion, right? And an onion has many layers when you peel it. So for us, OSM is not the end-all be-all for our application security. It's simply a compensatory control. And the reason I use the onion example is that the way we do security here is we have compensatory controls against the other. So that may seem like complex, but it's not. So when I said ISO, it's complemented by SOC 2. And with that is that our BCP plan is complemented by a specific practice. Our incident response plan is specific and complemented against the RTO, RPO. And then we do have custom and bespoke systems for those. And then OSM is more of the holistic approach. because it lives through codific, but at the same time, we use it to gauge how the others are functioning. So if you layer them all together, just like an onion, that's how we're approaching and reducing risk. So that's where it benefits. It's actual and natural. It's not one control that could fail. And the other part I do want to bring up, in terms of GDPR, and it's very important for this call also, is that being the privacy and data protection officer globally, is we use European GDPR as a security baseline. So part of OWASP is meeting Article 25 about data protection by design and default, because OWASP has threat modeling that you could use as part of your developer review session. It also goes to the extent of role-based access control in our APIs for us, and that could be yours. And as part of your review process through OWASP SAMM, you can look at data minimization in your schemas, right? Another interesting one is Article 5 of GDPR, which is around integrity and confidentiality. So things like having default encryption in transit and rest, secure logging, or even automated alerts for suspicious access patterns. These may seem like something you just should have and should have by default, but a lot of these are being checked through OWASP SAMM. You can say that, you know, your other frameworks check it, sure, but at the end of the day, where I'm getting and being towards is that we're running a business just like anyone else, and when you run a business, changes will always happen. And how durable and resilient is your security program, right? It's not like, hypothetically, if you put it that way, did we really need it? No, we could have just stayed with OWASP top 10. We could have just said, we have all these items and controls. We have a plethora of them, but is it sufficient? Because the weather is always changing, right?
Of course. Yeah, it's the concept of defense in depth as well, right? You don't want to be doing either or. You want to be doing both things if possible. Everything you can do that can help to reduce the risk and can help to improve your posture should be would generally be a good idea to do. And taking us a step back as well to the insurance story, I'm curious as well from my own perspective. I have a background in economics, so I'm very much about, you know, return on investments, these sort of things. Because one of the things that really impressed us about this particular story, and you know this, Jason, because we also discussed it in the past, is it's one of the first examples we've seen really that where you can attribute direct cost savings, let's say, to the implementation of OWASP SAMM. Now, from this conversation, I understand it was obviously not only the implementation of OWASP SAMM, it was implementation of OWASP SAMM together with a plethora of other frameworks and controls and things in place. But to that question, basically my question would be then, do you think there's definitely a return on investment when it comes to the time you've spent so far implementing OWASP SAMM, you know, carrying out the assessments, seeing where you're at? I know you guys don't develop like long-term improvement plans, but let's say implementing certain improvements based on what you found in OWASP SAMM and how you want to continue to improve your security. So yeah, is there a return on investment on it?
Of course. I mean, at the end of the day, it's you're running a business, so there has to be an ROI, and that ROI is very important to us internally in how we manage our day-to-day. So the return on investment is, I would look at it from three things. So I'll list three things. The first one is we want to make our developers efficient. We want them to be in a spot where, you know, they're contributing secure code, right? But for us to do that, are we going to be an enabler or a blocker, right? So in terms of ROI, efficiency is a key gain for us, right? And second, that leads into, well, what does that mean, right? Well, it means communication and culture and behavioral changes. So those might seem like, well, that should be just part of your job, but again, we're all human, so you have to look at it that way. We all want to communicate. We all have a means to signal to each other, and how do we do it in a way that is, you know, that is respectful of everyone, eliciting the right type of approaches, and, you know, behavioral meaning not just the human attitude of it, but also in terms of our day-to-day how-tos, right? The third part of it is, in terms of ROI, it allows us to embed security deeper. It's deeper than defense in depth. It's almost like it's just coding or just breathing air or just, you know, getting coffee. We want to make it very seamless and natural, because that's the type of habits you want to proceed with 4. And the reason I'm approaching it from that perspective, more from, again, from a fluid, natural, and behavioral change, is that I'll try an example. Let's say you work at a physical building, right? And you have fire drills every year. Now, it seems like you know what to do if there's a fire, right? And then you have a fire drill for regulations. But what if you do fire drills monthly? But you do it in a way that's not disruptive to the business. You do fire drills during your coffee break, right? You do fire drills while we're getting donuts. Now, it's going to slowly become a practice. It's not a blocker. I wouldn't say it's fun, but is it slowly becoming part of your business duties? And I'm using that example, even though it's not the best one, because it just shows that we're not doing it once a year. We're doing it far more frequent. But at the same time, we want to make it fluid and natural. That's the ROI for us, is that things that you want around risk management, things that you want in cost reduction, that can only be elicited if you're keeping a cohesive and flexible and healthy culture. And that culture starts with communication. And OWASP, if you look at it from a different perspective, it's a communication tool, right? You can look at it as not like, when I saw it, it's like, yeah, perfect. If it's for application security, it's a go. Let's get it done. We're also doing a GRC function. But to me, it's, how do I communicate with our developers? How do I communicate with our leadership or the rest of the business? And how do we also, for our internal and for our external, meaning our customers, how do we portray ourselves as a responsible organization? And then for that, I would roll it back to our onion layer example. It's that we have multiple layers. They're all compensatory. The whole purpose of that is we are a durable and resilient company. And for us to do that, we've introduced OWASP SAMM.